Welcome, everyone, to Creating a Family. Talk about foster, adoptive, and kinship care. I'm Dawn Davenport. I'm the host of this show, as well as the director of the nonprofit, creatingafamily.org. Today, we're going to be talking about the joys of being a foster parent. Our guests today are three foster parents, as you would imagine, since we're talking about the joys of being a foster parent. We have with us Lisa Floten. She is a licensed school counselor and currently a children's pastor. She has been fostering for 8.5 years with 19 kids placed in her home over that time. Her son, who was adopted through foster care, was also her first foster son. We also have Katrina Cantler. She is a retired 30-year exceptional children's teacher. She started fostering in June 2021 and has provided respite care for 27 children, with many of the children staying with her multiple times. And we have Christopher James. He has been fostering since 2006 and has fostered 57 kids and has adopted 2 and is in the process of adopting a 3rd. Welcome, Christopher, Katrina, and Lisa to Creating a Family.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so I needed to tell you the impetus for this show. As you know, we have been, or maybe you don't know, we have been doing a podcast for many, many years, in fact, 17 years, so many years. And our current sound engineer had commented to her mother, who let me know of this comment. She said, why would anybody ever be a foster parent? Because she listens. She is the sound engineer, so she listens to all of our podcasts. And her idea was, this is just a whole lot of work. Now, in fairness, she may have been meaning that in general for all parenting, but I think it's specific to foster parenting. And by the way, if anyone is looking for a terrific sound engineer, Sarah McGowan, phenomenal, cannot recommend her enough. So, Sarah, this one is for you. So why indeed would somebody become a foster parent? We're going to answer that question for you today. But before we do that, before we go talking with each of you about the joys, I think it would help to begin by saying, why did you get into being a foster parent? What was attractive to you, or why did you even think about it? Lisa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just always something that was on my heart. So I had always imagined being a foster parent, kind of waited for what I thought would be the perfect time, which we know doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what exactly would that be?
No, it's not a real thing. So I was starting a new career in school counseling, and it just seemed like the right time. So I started when I was 30 and immediately knew that I had capacity to being a foster parent, which I think is really important. If you don't have the capacity, it's not for everybody. So once I saw that, then I knew I was able to continue on for this duration. So.
Now, Lisa, are you partnered? Do you have a spouse or a partner?
I am not. I'm single.
Okay. And that's important information as well. All right. Katrina, why did you become a foster parent?
Well, like she just said, it's something I'd actually thought about for a long time. And then our church had a workshop they hosted for 8 months, people being trained to be foster parents. And before that start, a lot of statistics were shared. And it was just staggering when I saw how many kiddos in our state needed foster parents. And at that time, I thought, I'm not real sure I could be a foster parent, but I could sure be a support for a foster parent. And that's when I decided, my husband and I decided to go through the training and become licensed foster parents so that we could provide respite. And I just felt like that maybe more people in our community and our surrounding community might step up to the plate if they knew they had a support. Like, they knew there was a place where their kiddos could go when they needed a break or they had something that they had to do. So that's why we got started.
Okay. And Christopher, how about you? What drew you to becoming a foster parent?
Well, we hadn't thought about it when we got into the journey of being a foster parent. I had a cousin that come into care at the age of 6, and the family had got in touch with us about trying to take her, but we were living in Tennessee at the moment, not North Carolina. And the judge had asked us to become foster parents for an ICPC.
And that's, by the way, Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children. That means when their child's being placed across state lines. Go ahead, Christopher.
So by the time everything had gotten done, she had reunified with her parents because they had did their plans and got straight with it. and we were licensed. And so we decided to foster parent through Rutherford County, Tennessee, where we were at the time. And the rest has been history. I mean, we should have known our first place, but they worked us over good. They gave us 4 siblings, and I mean, I should have known by the way they were begging us that night that something was up, but hey, but I mean, it has been quite the journey, and there is lots of joy in it. That's why I kind of snickered when she said the joys of foster parenting, because I'm like, everybody always seems to focus on the negatives nowadays. Yeah. And it's like, if you really think about it, it's the hardest job you'll ever have, but the most rewarding, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's what got us into. We've done a lot of respite too to help people out, because there's not a lot of respite. And, those kids need somewhere to go sometimes. And we like to bring them in and give them a good weekend or whatever they're staying.
Mm-hmm. I take seriously, and I've heard this criticism before of our organization. We are the national support and training nonprofit for foster, adoptive, and kin families. And I've heard the complaint before that a lot of our resources are that this show highlights the negatives. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I do know where they're coming from. And I take it seriously, because adoption and foster care and kinship care have 2 sides. There's intense joy, but there are also, we feel such need to prepare people in advance, because if we don't, we have that mismatched expectations where our families go in expecting one thing, and there's nothing that sets you up for failure more than going in with how you think it's going to be and then being blindsided by the reality. So I think that's why, and I'm truly not trying to be defensive, because I do take seriously the criticism that we don't focus on the joys enough. So I hear what you're saying, Christopher, and I truly am aware of it and cognizant of it, even if it doesn't always feel like we respond to it that way. So today, though, let's dive in. Alyssa, I'm going to start with you. And the way the format's going to be is I'm going to ask one of you to share a joy. Then the 3 of you can discuss it if there is something to discuss. And then we'll go to the next person who shares a joy and just kind of do a round robin that way. So, Alyssa, without further ado, let's jump into some joyous stuff.
Yeah. So I guess when I was thinking through this, the first thing that came to mind are the children, right? I always say that the kids are what makes fostering worth it. And so I thought through the different cases. I've had 19 kids in my home, some sibling sets, some individual kids, and watching kids come from their situations, whatever trauma that is, watching just confidence grow, watching them feel comfortable in their own skin. I've had infants who've come into my care who don't know what it's like to be held or have their needs met. And having that is a really hard situation. And then to see them look to their caregiver for their needs being met in just a few weeks, or watching a child be confident in their academic abilities when before it was a major struggle. So giving them the support and watching them thrive for me is the biggest joy. You see them smile, you look at them and know that they feel safe, that they feel, what a routine can do for them. All of that for me is the biggest joy. I look at it. So I guess that's also why I continue to foster. I've had that question from people, like, why do you continue to do it? And it really is the kids and watching them go from a situation that has impacted them, but to see them thrive with stability, routine, love, and the things that they're able to receive in care.
Christopher, does that resonate with you as to the watching the kids grow in confidence and capability? Is that part of what sustains you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have children come in and they have never had anything of showing them real kind of love or any stability. Because you see a lot of that times that they don't have the stability. And all of a sudden they're realizing, hey, I don't have to share this plate, because I get a lot of siblings with my sibling. I've got my own, or I've got my own space, my own bed all of a sudden. And sometimes it can be overwhelming for them, but it's awesome to see them when they start smiling and start coming to you and realizing, hey, I'm getting to see what it's really like to be a child.
Mm-hmm.
That warms your heart. It really warms your heart up when you can, because you see it right in front of you.
Giving a child their childhood back is
yes, most definitely, and that is definitely a joy of the whole situation. She hit a good point right there.
Katrina, what about you as it relates to seeing the kids grow in confidence, giving them back a childhood?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It can be sad, but actually, my husband and I try to look at it as something happy when we do activities and things with kids and we realize they've never done it before. And like maybe they're 7 years old and you know that that's something that you did with your child, maybe when they turned 1. So, yeah, I totally agree that just seeing the confidence and the stability that you can provide for a child and seeing them grow. I mean, I can't think of anything that could give you more joy.
Yeah. I am loving this feel-good conversation about all the joys associated with being a foster parent. But I still want to tell you about something that we're doing here at Creating a Family. I hope you've heard about it, but if not, we have a new podcast. It's called Weekend Wisdom, and it's where we answer your questions in about 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes it's just me who is answering the question, and sometimes we get an expert to specifically address your question. So send us your questions at info@creatingafamily.org. And start listening to the Weekend Wisdom. It drops on Sunday, and tell a friend. Now, back to the show. All right, Katrina, you're up to share a next joy that you find in being a foster parent.
Well, I've also had people ask me, what they'll say is, oh, so you're still doing that? And I always think, and sometimes I actually say, oh my goodness, yes. Because my husband and I, we've done more picnics and more bike rides and found more creeks to get in around the area where we live. And we have fun in our efforts to find fun things for the kiddos to do. We end up having so much fun. So many times I just look at people and I say, are you kidding? Do you like to do picnics? Do you like to go float on a float in the pool? Because that's the kinds of things that you're doing. So, in turn, you might think that you're doing something just to have a healthy, fun activity for the kid. But really, my husband and I have a lot of fun doing those things. And I don't know if we'd be doing it as often if we weren't doing respite care for kiddos. So to me, that's a huge joy.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to interject here. As our kids age, there are certain things you can't do as an adult unless you'd have a kid along, okay?
Right.
You just look weird, okay? So, but they're fun to do. So I get totally what you're saying. Yeah, completely. Christopher, do you identify with Katrina as far as getting to do fun things that you wouldn't ordinarily do?
Well, yeah. I love to take the kids just to the mall to walk around. And then I'll look at them and go, see, that store's made it from when I was your age and stuff. We got to go in here or whatever. But I take the kids to like the music park, the carnivals and things like that. And, it gets me active with them. Like I took the kids to the state fair a couple of years ago and they actually got me back on rides. My background, when I got out of the military, I went in the carnival business for 9 years before I met my wife. So I'd go out just to see the people I know, but the kids, I take them out there and next thing you know, I'm everywhere, and taking the kids to the pool and things. There's stuff that I normally probably wouldn't do. I would probably be trying to get something else done or whatever, but having the kids actually makes it where I'm going out and still doing stuff that's fun, me and my wife, And we would probably just be like, oh, we're getting old. We're, we just rather stay home. You hear when people start getting to their 50s, like myself, we're like, oh, well, we'd just rather sit at home. But with these kids, they keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
I got a 17-month on there and she keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
And up at night.
Yeah. Oh, that too.
That too. Yeah. But no, wait, we're talking about joy, so we won't talk about that. All right. Lissa, what about you? Do you identify with keeping you young or doing things you wouldn't do?
Yeah, no, I love, it comes back to kind of what I talked about again, but when you get to see the experience through kids' eyes, right? Going to the pool or going to the park is a different experience as an adult, but when you can see it through a kid, I remember my toddler I had last year when I took her to the zoo, it was her first time ever, right? And you get to see it through her eyes.
Yeah.
It's a totally different experience than I go to the zoo multiple times a year. It just kind of seems like something you do, but when you see it through their eyes, it's an amazing experience. So absolutely.
All right. Those are two great ones then. All right, Christopher, top that. What's another joy?
Well, one of my joys is being able to look at people when they say, well, I couldn't give kids back. And you get the joy of looking at them and saying, we made a difference in this child's life. This child is now ready to go out back to home, reunified, and going out better than they came in.
Mm-hmm.
And being that I'm able to parent these children as if they're my own,
Mm-hmm.
and know that they're learning from that process and going to take that knowledge with them and be able to take on challenges head on, that to me is a joy. When I was introducing earlier, I said the hardest job, but the most rewarding. That is one of the joys of being a foster parent, is knowing that you've made a difference with these children that come in, and a lot of them come in with nothing. And then when they leave, they're leaving with their dignity, leaving with more knowledge, and leaving knowing that somebody loved them and somebody wanted to care for them. And you're helping them as they make their transition back home or to their family members like that. And to me, that's a joy, because I always hear people say, oh, I couldn't give them back. Well, no, you should give them back, when they're ready to go. You did a difference there. It's hard, but you did a difference for the children.
We call it being a soft landing place for a child who really needs it. And yeah, you are the soft landing. Lissa, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that is a huge joy that I think a lot of us don't acknowledge all of the time. And I think even I have been blessed. I have a very supportive network, but even my mom, like when I have had a newborn who has been with me for a few months and they transition to a relative or back home, knowing that in those imperative times, at that time where they need to know that they can have trust and love, and they'll never remember me necessarily in that time, but what you're doing in impacting those kids to allow them to thrive in their future, I think is a huge joy.
Katrina?
Oh, yeah, I agree with all y'all. I'm a little bit different since I do respite care, but kind of in conjunction with what you're saying. Right now, we can be a stable part of a kiddo's life, even within the foster system, because right now we actually, as an emergency placement, got 2 little girls on Friday who, for different set of reasons, had to leave their foster family. And so you were talking about a soft landing. I was glad that they were able to land somewhere where they had been going to receive respite care for the past 2 years. So they didn't have to go to, a stranger's house, and they didn't have to change schools because the kiddos are in my community. So they wouldn't have to change schools, which had they had to change schools, it would have been the 4th time in 3 years.
Yeah, those were great ones. Let me pause here to ask, did you know about our free courses that we have on the creatingafamily.org website? Thanks to our partners, the Jockey Being Family Foundation, you can go to bit.ly/JBF support and choose from a library of courses that will dovetail nicely with today's content. Again, that's bit.ly/JBF support. That's bit.ly/JBF support. If you need continuing ed as a foster parent or as a foster kinship parent, these count for your CE. So check it out. All right, up for round 2. Lissa, take us away.
For me, another joy is building my connections. So I have a lot of relationships that I have built through foster parenting. I've been a part of a number of support groups with other foster parents. So we know that this is a role that, if we do in isolation, is really unsustainable. So by having these different fellow foster parents that I can process with, pray together, walk through the ugly and the joys of, is a huge thing. A conversation just came up last week about medical assistance and how do you process this? And having a sounding board is a huge joy for me. And some of my greatest friends I have found just through these organizations. And now I'm at this point where 8.5 years, I'm able to even, speak into other people and mentor them as they're starting, because we need foster parents. We need people to see the joys. We need this to be a sustainable thing. And when you're able to speak into their lives, when they get that first placement and it's hard or it didn't work out, that they just don't think, I can't do this. Well, no, let me speak into you and help you work through this and see what areas you can grow in. So for me, that has been a huge joy and a huge aspect for my life.
Christopher, have you also made friends through fostering, people that you would obviously probably not have run into or connected with because you wouldn't have had anything in common?
Most definitely. A couple of my foster parent friends, I was connected with one this morning while I was waiting on the child's visit at DSS. Me and him are probably polar opposites on everything, but we have gelled and become good friends. You know, like she was talking about her connections. I'm the current Foster Family Alliance Region 4 leader and facilitator because I teach some classes through your curriculum to my foster parents. So I'm kind of a liaison, you know, with them. And so I've got the pleasure of meeting people from all over a 10-county region, and we've all become a close knit. And that's one of the joys there is we are all able to come together. If somebody calls or gets up and tells me, hey, I've got a placement coming, but I'm not prepared with this, this, and this. You know, if I can't get it, I've got some other parents that are like, hey, all right, I'm close by, you know, we'll take care of each other. I mean, you wouldn't believe how great those types of connections are out there. And I try to explain that to people when I'm out trying to recruit foster parents, you know, that we're all one big family. And that is a very great thing and a joy of foster parenting, knowing that we're all as tight knit as we are and jumping in with each other when there's a need there that we all can help one another out. And when we're all able to be one like that as one big unit, it makes it easier with the children that are in our care because we're all able to be prepared to give them what they need right away. And so I add to that with the connections that you make along the way are very, very valuable.
Katrina, as a respite care provider, have you found connection in community, or are you more isolated because you're not a traditional foster parent?
Well, no, I actually have too. And when I jotted down some of my thoughts before we signed on today, I put that one of my joys is being a part of a team now, because now I have such great support from the private organization that we were licensed through, support with DSS, support with school counselors. And I found it a real joy just to have such a great team, because you really are working as a team, because it's not just the foster parents. You've also got other people that are out there helping the kiddos. Usually, though, as a foster parent, you're the one helping coordinate it. But I would say a part of having a great team has been one of my joys of being a respite parent.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
And yes, I have become friends with quite a few of the kiddos that we do respite with. They're foster parents. And outside of just fostering, we've just gotten to be friends. So yes, that has been a joy.
All right. Well, Katrina, don't think just because you were able to tag one of yours on that doesn't mean you're not up for a new one. Just want you to know that was sly and subtle, but it didn't work. Can you share a different joy?
Yes, I sure can. I would say, and this basically piggybacks off of one of the other guests today, just the joy of being able to bring stability to a kid. And, you know, another reason why being a foster parent or helping in the system has always been in the back of my head is those 30 years that I was teaching, there were so many times when a kiddo had negative behaviors or learning difficulties. And lots of times I would just go home and I'd think to myself, you know, if there was some stability in that kid's life, I really think we could get over this hump. And that was another reason when the opportunity came up, I thought, you know, all those years I thought about kids needing stability. Well, there's no time like the present.
Yeah.
I might as well just jump right in.
Yeah.
But I would just say that sense of being able to give a kid stability, because honestly, that's the first thing that I notice when a new kid's coming into the system is they have not had any stability. And I mean, it's hard to function without stability.
Yeah.
And they're showing the ramifications of not have had any stability in their life. So anyway, that's a joy to me.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, does providing stability resonate?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think of a few situations that came to mind, but I remember a little guy that I had when he first was talking to his birth mom about living with me. He was like, I get to do chores and I get to help with the house. And she's like, well, you can do that when you come home. So it was just neat because, I was able to partner with mom on like the strategies that I was using, but truly it was empowering him to have some ownership. And I'm not a hard push on things, but I think
slave driver, is that the word you were going for? Yeah. Okay.
But I am able to like provide, because I think routine and structure is a huge part of stability.
Mm-hmm.
But it was neat when I'll never forget that phone call when he was just almost bragging about the fact that he got to do chores. And I've seen that throughout numerous kids when they're able to just know what there is expected of them, they're able to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Christopher, thoughts on that?
I can definitely say that the stability part is one of the joys, because you'll see kids come in, like I said a few sessions ago there, they've never had anything. I've had children that come in and are just looking at me like, okay, what do I do next? And you start showing them that, and they're getting that confidence where they can speak, where they're not walking on pins and needles, and they realize, hey, wait a minute. And then you get them into a routine, and in within no time, they're like members of the family, which they're supposed to be anyways while they're here. But they're all of a sudden into the routine, the stability comes in. And when you see them light up because they're excited that they did something and they're getting praise, that makes you light up also, because, the most simple things some of these children that are in care for, it excites them so much once they start getting stable and comfortable in the house, in the foster home they're in. I don't even like saying foster, really, to be honest with you, because I usually refer to people in our home when people ask me about it. And I'm embarrassed to be a foster, but the kids, nobody needs to know. It's none about
Right.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me all the time. I'm like, no, they're my kids. Yeah. I don't put that foster in there. But that is a joy, seeing stability, because it will really bring a child's self-confidence up, because they've taken a beating with their self-confidence when they get taken out of the only thing they know. Even if it's a negative situation, it's still hard on them because they're losing what they know. Their comfort zone's gone. But yeah, I can definitely piggyback on what both these young ladies said on that one being very much of a joy.
Lisa, I wanted to follow back up with you something that Christopher had said, and we hear it, it's less relevant to Katrina as a respite parent. We hear this frequently, and that is, I couldn't be a foster parent because any joy associated would be totally wiped out when they leave. And especially if they leave and I'm not sure that the birth family is stable enough to handle them or whatever. In other words, I'm not sure I agree with the decision, and they leave, and that would wipe away any of the associated joy with being a foster parent. What are your thoughts on when the child leaves?
I want to know if you're spying on my life right now a little bit. I'm currently walking through a very similar situation to what you just described, with a child who went home and being at peace with that and how to continue to build connection. So the way I continue to find joy is knowing in that child's life, like, again, how they thrived in the time they were with me, how I've built up connection with that birth parent that they have reunified with, so that I can continue to be a support in the small capacity I'm still able to at their discretion. I'm a very relational person. So by building that relationship with that birth parent, it might not be the situation that I desire for that child right now, but I know I made an impact. And my hope is that I can continue to support that child in the way that I can. It's not easy. I mean, I've walked through it where reunification is wonderful and I'm so excited. I had 2 children, different cases in my home last year, and one was beautiful and the other was harder. And I think it's for me just being able, again, to process that. So it's kind of all of what we talked about, right? I have the right support so I can process through that. I'm not in it alone, but you're still able to find the joy for sure.
Katrina, does it bother you that the kids may not remember you? I mean, that you're a short time not only because you're respite, but also just because in an ideal world, foster care is a short time.
Does that bother me? No, it doesn't bother me. Like you guys have said, just knowing in my heart that I tried to make a difference, and I think my husband and I did,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of wipes out any sadness I might have.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, we've been pretty lucky. Like one of the young men that we had for the longest, he was in a group home situation. So he didn't have family. So, like, he spent his holidays here, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And since he was older, I have been able to keep in touch with him just through, like, an email every now and again. So, there are ways, at least just to know how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'll say that just the joy of knowing I made a difference or hopefully made a difference, that kind of wipes out any kind of negative or any kind of sadness I would have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me break in right here. I know it's a little late to be doing this in this interview, but I do want to send a warm thank you to our current listeners, as well as returning listeners, as well as new listeners. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And when you subscribe to our creatingafamily.org podcast, it gives you access to our extensive archives of shows on everything you can imagine about foster, adoptive, and kinship care. We've been doing this show for, I think, 17 plus years. So as a result, we have got so many great past shows. All of that is available to you if you subscribe on whatever app you're listening to a podcast on. You can subscribe to the creatingafamily.org podcast. Christopher, another joy, another reason to be a foster parent.
It has allowed me to be that parent. And I think I've got one better on most parents because I've got to parent multiple kids. When I say multiple, more than what any family normally would have, children-wise. And to me, that's a huge blessing for me and my wife because we've been able to be that parental figure. And we enjoy being the parental figures to the children. And to me, that is probably one of the biggest joys. Just being the foster parent itself, that we have the multiple children involved in our lives and we're involved in theirs. And it piggybacks on what they were saying a second ago. We know that we've made a difference in these children. We see them as they come in, and we see them as they go for their reunification or to their kinship.
Mm-hmm. Leslie, you've mentioned a couple of times the importance of a support system. Who is your support system, and just broadly, and how do people create a support system if they want to become foster parents? And in your case, being a single foster parent makes it all the more imperative, I would think. But I would maintain that couples who are doing it need it as well.
Yeah. So for me, my family was really supportive initially. So I'm very blessed to have very involved parents and a strong friendship group. Also at my church, we actually have a very strong foster care support network and ministry. And so that has been a huge part. So that's one of the support groups that I attend. And being able to be really involved with people in my life, I've been able to build up that support network. So that's my primary support.
Mm-hmm. Katrina, as a respite provider, I could understand that some would say, well, you're not keeping the kids for that long, so the needs of having a external support system are not that great. Would you agree with that the needs are not as great when you're a respite?
No, because when they're in your home, I still need the support. They're still going to be having the same behaviors and the same issues that they have when they're in the home of the foster parent. And that's where that support system really comes in, I think. So no, I think you still need that support system, of which I have a wonderful one.
Yeah. And is your support, obviously you're married, so your husband is a support. Who else provides the support for you as your parent? You mentioned the children's foster parents, which I think is a beautiful relationship since you've been able to establish that.
Well, as far as my family, I have 2 adult children, and they've been a huge support. And I have 2 grandchildren. One's in elementary school and one's in middle school. And believe it or not, you can't believe what a support they are. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. Especially my grandson, who's only 9, who has been a great, great, great playmate for lots of different kiddos that have been in my home.
Mhm.
And also, not that he's perfect, but I think he's been a good model for behavior around some of the kiddos that we've had.
Mhm.
But I would say the private organization that we went through, the person that is assigned to us and that does our visits quarterly, I would say they've probably been one of my biggest support systems.
Mhm.
It's that private entity that we went through.
Mhm. Yeah. We preach that a lot, that when choosing an agency to get licensed with, it's easy to think of the short term, the convenience up front and things like that. But what you really need is someone who's going to be there for the long walk.
Right.
Someone who's going to be there at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night type of thing to answer
Oh,
questions.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. How am I supposed to handle this or whatever? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to open it up. Does anybody else have a joy that we have not addressed?
You know, one of the joys that I have is I was always raised that you need to figure out what your talents are, and somehow you need to be able to give those back to somebody else. And there's a lot of things I couldn't do to give back to somebody, but I feel like one of my talents or one of my gifts is working with kids. And I will say that loving these kids that have come in my home and having fun with them, one selfish thing that I feel like my husband and I have gotten from fostering is setting an example for our grandchildren and just setting an
Mm-hmm.
example that you treat everybody the same way. And people come from all different walks of life, and people come and may have lots of material things, and people may not have lots of material things. And people may be really good at basketball, or they may have never held a basketball in their hand, but you treat everybody the same and you find some kind of commonality and then you just run with it. Like my grandson the other day, he came over Christmas break because I was keeping a little girl over Christmas break because her foster mom, of course, had to go back to work. The little girl was still out of school. And I was thinking, well, I'm not sure how this is going to work out because it was a little girl and it was my grandson that was coming. Well, within about 15 minutes, they had taken all the play food that he hasn't looked at in probably 5 years that I just had tucked away. And they'd set up a restaurant down in my basement. And we're inviting my husband and I to come down and sit and order some food. Oh, and they also had music, which was nice. But I sat there and I thought, I'm so glad that my grandson gets exposed to this. And he has no idea that during that day, not only was he playing with food and setting up a restaurant, but he was learning how to just be a friend to somebody, no matter who it is, no matter whether they had the same interest. Because I knew when he was coming over, I thought, oh my goodness, because all he wants to do is play football. But it didn't take him very long to figure out that they could just set up a play restaurant. And they had fun doing that for like 2.5 hours.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So anyway, that's maybe kind of selfish, but I get joy from knowing that young people around me will realize that in life, you got to figure out what you can do, what your talents are to help somebody. And mine just happened to be working with kids, I think.
Mm-hmm. Loving on kids, you could have worse talents, for sure. Lissa or Christopher, do either of you have a joy that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I was going to say something kind of along the same lines, but for me, watching my son be a foster brother has been a really huge joy. My son, I adopted, he came to me as a newborn, as he mentioned in my bio. He was my first placement. And throughout the years, watching him love on kids, like right now, he's the only child in our home. And he's like, when are we getting more kids? Because he just loves the kids. So primarily, he loves when we have babies. He will hold and feed a baby and love on that baby and sing to him. And so watching just his care has been a huge joy. it's also hard, right? You have to walk through, but he gets so excited. If I let him know, like, hey, I might be going to the hospital to pick up. I mean, he is elated and he wants to show
Oh,
off his new brothers or sisters to whoever he has. And the ownership that he has in our fostering journey is a huge joy.
We so often, I mean, one of the prime reasons that people stop fostering or disruptive placement is because of children already in their home and something not working out. So it is good to hear the positives that come from being a foster sibling or a foster grand sibling to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we more often hear okay, it didn't work out. And if I had to choose, I'm going to choose my own child, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All right, Christopher, I'm going to give you the final say. Any joy that you have not shared or that we have not discussed?
Well, mine's kind of on the same kind of lines, but maybe a little different. I have two adopted children that come out of the system, and I have a third one that we're starting all that process. And so I have one 30 this year, one is 17 this year, and one will be 2 this year.
Talk about spreading yours out.
Yeah. Watching my 16-year-old that we just finalized an adoption a couple months ago really kind of mature up a little bit because she's very immature and very naive. And I have to really keep an eye on her a lot. But watching how she relates with the 17-month-old, and it's like my little sister, type thing, that's kind of really bringing me like, wow. But one of the things that I'll touch base on that's a joy is the fact that we can have multicultural families in foster care. So everybody is being able to see and get away from all the stereotypes. They can see that not all this race is like this or this religion's like that. They can see that we're all alike. It makes things a lot easier when it's blended like this, and you can show that. And seeing them all get along and not have all the stereotypes, and that is a joy there because you're able to do something that is really hard on a lot of regular families because you're not going to be a lot of multicultural. You're not going to have Hispanic or African American and whites all in one house. You're not going to have Catholics or even Jehovah's Witnesses or atheists in one house in most places. And all of a sudden, they're all living together and they all get to see, hey, we're pretty much the same. We just have some different ideas and a little bit of hue to our skin or something. And so that is one of the joys there. I like to see them all getting along, all these children with the different backgrounds and stuff. Once it's left the house, they still refer to each other as their brothers and sisters. Some of my former kids keep up with me. I've even had some from Tennessee that still keeps up with me. And that was back in 2007, 8, and 9. Some of these kids that was in my house, they still keep up. Thank God for social media, right?
Well, yes. Words not spoken very often in 2024.
Yeah,
but yes.
Well, that one found me and then another one found me because they had become friends because they went to school together. And they were like, oh, we talked to our own foster parent. Oh, I wonder if he'll talk to me too. And I'm like, of course I will. I've had one come visit me when we were living at the beach after we left Tennessee before we come to North Carolina. Because we were down there for 10 years. I had one of them come down with their family and hung out with us for a couple of days. And that was awesome. To have that. I sent one some pictures recently of when we had her as a child. And she was like, oh my God, my daddy doesn't have none of this stuff. And you're giving me all these pictures that we had of you. That made me feel good. It really, really did, because she didn't have no pictures of that time frame. And she was with us for like 2.5 years. She had no pictures from that time frame, and her dad didn't even know she existed. But she stepped up and did everything he had to do to get her. So he didn't have nothing from her child, baby, or anything. I wish I had more than that. But she was so appreciative of having those pictures. And see, that's the type of stuff that I try to explain to people when they give me the objection of becoming foster parents. Oh, I couldn't give them back. Well, you want them to go back to their normalcy and their families and stuff. Adoption should be a last resort, because it is permanency, yes. But it should be a last resort if they can't be with their birth family. And I get it. We have to make those sacrifices. And like myself, I'm willing to adopt children as my own. Most of you are. And I was going to say to the one lady there that does respite, you're probably everybody's best friend in your agency. Because that is the one thing I hear. But they promised me respite. I don't get no respite.
Yeah.
But you see, you're getting the joy out of doing the rest of it because,
Right.
like, I've heard your stories. But yeah, that's where I would go, is seeing the difference that you make. Like I said, and that really made my day when I was able to send her pictures, and she was like, "Oh,
Yeah. I will throw out there that we have been asked more than one occasion to do Creating a Family podcast on becoming a respite provider. It's in our plan sometime for 2024. We booked quite a bit in advance, so it won't be Q1, but sometime we will be doing that because, Christopher, you are so right that there is such a need, and it feels more doable for many people because depending on the stage of your life, whether you can have the child full time. So thank you so much, Christopher James, Katrina Cantler, and Lisa Floten, for being with us today to talk about the joys of being a foster parent. You guys have listed so many. I think that it will make a difference in a lot of people's lives. So thank you.
Thank you.
And before you go, let me shout out, thank you, Vista Del Mar. They are a licensed nonprofit adoption agency, and they've been working on placing kids and families for over 65 years. They have a home study only service, as well as a full service infant adoption program, an international home study program, and post-adoption support. They also have a foster to adopt program. You can check them out online at vistadelmar.org/adoption.